This is Jarrett Pritchard of Pulchra Morte, and you're listening to Jet on Metal Messiah Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight I have with us a special guest. We have Jarrett Pritchard of Pulchra Morte. Welcome to the show, Jarrett.
Well, thank you.
Did I pronounce the name of your band correctly?
Yeah, Pulchra, like Pulchra Morte.
Okay.
I seriously wanted to name the first album like the pronunciation, like Leonard Skinner did, but we didn't.
Okay, so Jarrett, where are you coming to us from now?
I'm in Germany on the. I'm not sure what city I'm in, but I know we're on the border of Poland, and I just have the day off here, and I'm just in the hotel. I was actually just editing a record that I'm working on.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time for this today. And Jarrett, when did you become interested in guitar? And was guitar the first instrument you played?
Well, when I was little, my dad played in bands, and I was super interested in band practice and stuff like that. And at first, everybody thought I was going to be a drummer because I ran around and was obsessed with drums, and I beat divots in my mom's dashboard and all this. And but my dad was multi-instrumentalist, but he played the bass from what I remember in his bands. And I basically, my aunt, Ruth Ann, gave me Destroyer when I was about 4 or 5. And I saw Ace Frehley, and that was the end of it. And I just wanted to be a guitar player ever since. And I probably started playing for real. My mom says I was 6. I started taking lessons. So I probably started when I was 6.
So what was the first guitar you owned?
Oh man. I mean, other than plastic, Mickey Mouse guitar or Kiss, Kiss guitar. My first actual guitar was an acoustic, and I was taking lessons, and the lessons just didn't jive with me really. They were teaching me how to play chords and trying to, teach me how to play fucking Kookaburra. And, I was already listening to heavy metal. I mean, by the time I was 6 or 7, I was already into heavy metal. And, but my dad, when I was 10, bought me a PVT-15 and a thing called an electric case. So that PVT-15 has had a resurgence. A lot of people play them now, but the case had an amplifier built into it. And so you had a little 50-watt amp in your case. And he also taught me how to build pedals. He built me my first distortion pedal. And,
That's cool.
And that's how it started.
And that's funny how you mention about guitar lessons, because I think the first songs they were teaching me on guitar too when I had an acoustic was Camptown Races or something like that.
Right. something you just don't want to play is completely uninspiring.
And you're like, I want to play rock and roll. I don't want to play Camptown Races.
I mean, even Joan Jett says that when she tried to take lessons, they, did that to her. I think that's probably how it used to start. People just thought there was a certain way to do it. Luckily, we teach a little differently now.
And now we have YouTube too, so we didn't have that stuff back in the day.
Man, if I'd have had YouTube when I was learning how to play, it would have been insane.
So how many guitars do you own now, Jarrett?
Do I own?
That's right.
Let's see. I have the 2 ESPs that I got from ESP that are my main guitars, and I have an Iceman, I have an SG, and I have the V, and I have 2 basses, and then I have another ESP that's a 7-string. So I think I have 8.
There you go. And so now, getting a little off subject, when did you start getting interested in all the engineering and production aspects of music, Jarrett?
Well, that's kind of funny because it was always around. Like I said, my dad, had me stuffing PCBs and soldering and stuff when I was a kid. Right after that, my mom was in the theater, so I spent a lot of time in the theater, and I got a job as the sound effects operator. So I would have reel-to-reels when I was 11 or 12, and I would cue up the sound effects, and then the right time in the play would happen, and I would play the sound effects off of reel-to-reel, and then We went on the road, and something had gone wrong. Me and my mom did. She was like in a play, traveling, like dinner theater thing, and I ended up like rigging the lights for the show. I mean, I'm a kid. I mean, you know, probably maybe like 12, but I started playing in bands, and I started playing in punk rock bands. Is how I started, and we had like our own makeshift PA, and we weren't playing clubs. You know, we're playing house parties and stuff. So whenever we did a party, it was our sound system. Fast forward quite a few years, you know, so, you know, I mean, well, also I should mention too that we have multi-tracks when I was a kid in my house, my dad's house, and I was already recording, but I would like read stories into it and then put music behind it and sound effects. I mean, I was just kind of a weird kid, but basically what happened is I was an electrician. That's how I made my living the whole time I was playing in Eulogy. And one day I cut my hand really bad, and I was all stitched up, really pissed off. And I called my dad on the phone. I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to work anymore. Like, I don't care if I'm a bum. Like, I'm just not doing this anymore. Like, fuck this. I'm not going to be a slave. And my dad goes, well, why don't you engineer? I was like, what do you mean? He says, yeah, just why don't you engineer? And I was like, well, you know, it had never occurred to me people made money doing it, first of all. And second of all, I was just, you know, I just was like, well, I don't think I know how. My dad was a very soft-spoken guy. He never really got pissed off at me or anything. And he was annoyed with me this time. And he goes, what are you talking about? You know, I've been teaching you since you were 7 years old, you know, and basically, long story short, I made my resume up with a typewriter. I walked to a Western Union for $2 and I faxed it over to a company in Tampa. Later on that day, I was on their truck, headed to Lowry Park to set up a show with two other guys. And once like that was out of the gate, it just was nonstop. Like I was reading everything, and I was just full on. Also, too, not to be long-winded, but my dad was an acoustics engineer for NASA for about 20-something years. Mm-hmm. So I had a pretty good teacher for most of my life.
So tell us a little bit about your studio and some of the bands that have done work with you, Jarrett.
Well, it's in Orlando, and it's a partnership with my friend Jeremy Miller, who actually right now is the system tech for the gigantic like Grateful Dead tour that's about to go out. And he was just now the system tech for Dave Matthews, who's an extremely talented engineer. You got to kind of imagine I probably wouldn't work with anyone who wasn't. And we basically took over a couple years ago a studio that was built when Eric Schilling was working with Gloria Estefan. Mm-hmm. And we took over this room mostly to store our remote gear in it. And fate kind of got involved, and Tony Laureano called me up and needed to track some drums for that Devil's Highway thing with Ralph Santola and mm-hmm. Kyle and all that. And he needed to track some drums basically. So he called me up and he was in a pinch. And I said, well, you know, put it in the car. Come on up here. And so I tracked the drums. And then once I had done it in the house, because it really wasn't set up for a studio. I mean, the studio is definitely a house. It was built by John Storch. I mean, it's a real studio. It's pretty crazy how amazing the build out is. But once I did Tony, right on the heels of that, Scott and Jay and Jeff, obviously Brutality, my very good friends, called me and they're like, yeah, you want to do this record? And I was like, sure, you know, like, and so then they came up. And then right after that, then it was, you know, Daniel Gonzalez, who's, you know, in Gruesome and Possessed. He called me up and said, hey, do you want to, you know, well, I mean, I had already mixed Savage Land, and he was like, you know, hey, we want to do another record, you know, can we do it at your place or whatever? And I was like, yeah, sure, come on. So then the Gruesome guys came. And then after the Gruesome guys came, you know, I mixed a bunch of other things. I've had a lot of people come through. I did the Exhumed record there, 100% there. I did, well, Brutality was actually in 2 sessions. There was the first attempt at the album with a different drummer, and then there was the actual Sea of Ignorance sessions that we did. There is a Eulogy recording that's unfinished that Clay and Mike Bearden, the original guys, came down and did a few songs, and Dave Fernandez was in the room at the time, and we were all playing and recording, and that's sitting on a hard drive somewhere. And then obviously I did Nocturnus mm-hmm. in that studio, but I mean, mix-wise, man, mixed a ton of stuff there. I mean, just did Cannabis Corpse this year. I just did a band called Insanity this year. I mixed Lecherous Nocturne there. It's just a cool like studio, and I bought a tape machine, and got a bunch of cool mics. And when I'm not traveling, because sometimes I travel, I like to go up to Matt Talbot's room in Tolono, Illinois, which is called Earth Analog, and I did Go Tour there. Oh yeah, I did some of the Go Tour vocals in our studio, but I like to go up there. And then when I work with 1349, I go to Norway, and this time I went to Ampertone Studios, which is in Oslo, and then I finished it up at Studio with Zen Toten, I think is how you pronounce it, and it's way out in the country, and it belongs to Ronnie Tico from TNT, and that place is really nice too. And yeah, so there you go.
And just from you talking there, you're constantly out on the road doing that kind of work, tour managing, front of house, all your audio engineering. What job of all this stuff that you do you like to do the most? Or do you just like doing it all?
Well, I probably like I don't know. I like playing a lot. But I like being an engineer. I like being an engineer, like mixing. I like in the studio more than any of it, but I like it all. It's hard to say because they're all really different. The things I do are super different. But touring wise, I've gotten to mix some really amazing bands out as their front of house. I mixed the Melvins for like 60 shows. That was amazing. I mixed Cynic for several years. That was amazing. I've been with 49 for like 11 years, and I've been with Go Tour almost as long. And being a front of house engineer, I guess after you've done it for a long time, it kind of changes where it becomes like you're playing the band, like you're sort of like you're I don't want to say like you're a fifth instrument, because that's not true, but you're the link between the band and the audience. In recent years, one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do is Triptychon's been coming over a lot more, and Tom Warrior and I are pretty good friends, and so when Triptychon comes to this continent, I handle them, and I just mixed them in Montreal like 2 weeks ago. And sometimes there are bands that you'll go and mix, and even me, as long as I've been doing it, where you don't have it. Either it has to do with them or their equipment, or maybe the way you think doesn't mesh with their music. There are times when you don't have it. Everybody gets in the washing machine, and the washing machine is kind of like surfing. Like if you go surf and a hurricane swell, the waves are huge, but they're coming at you from all sides, and there's really no way to win. You just get pummeled. That's what I call it when it's not working, when you're doing a show. But then there are other times, like with Triptychon, for instance, where you just know exactly what you want out of it, and it's pummeling coming out of the PA, and I've had some great shows with those. I did the LA Decibel Metal and Beer Fest when they played the Celtic Frost set, and it was really cool. Albert from Decibel, who's a friend of mine, came by me, and he was just jumping up and down. He's like, it's not so fucking good. And it was amazing for all of us. Like Clay was with me, and we did like the Throned Emperor, and then like I did the echoes, he says the Throned Emperor, and Clay's like, oh my fucking God. When it's going well, it's really fun. So I think I probably like mixing front of house when I'm with a band that we really mesh. And that's probably what I like the most.
And now getting back to your band careers, how many bands were you in prior to Pulchra Morte?
Well, not that many. I haven't actually been in that many bands in my life because the music playing thing is not pedestrian to me. Like, I'm absolutely incapable of doing anything music-wise that I'm not 100% committed to. I don't have it. I just don't. So I played in a punk rock band when I was a kid called the X Fiends with my friends in Virginia, and then I moved to Florida and I started Eulogy in 1989. Eulogy ended in 1995. I played in a band called Unifera, which was a grindcore band from Virginia for a little while. Then I spent 5 years not playing anywhere, but locked in a studio with 3 of my best friends, just playing to play. And then I came out of that. I moved to Florida, and I didn't play with anybody. I did a lot of session work from 2005 until 2009. I played a bit of studio sessions, and then we tried to get Eulogy back together, but that didn't work out. And a lot of time passed, and I jam with people or whatever, but nothing really serious ever stuck. And then I joined Pulchra Morte, and funny enough, right on the heels of that, Wolfhammer needed someone to sit in on guitar for some shows, so I did that. And then Brutality asked me if I wanted to play second guitar for them when they play live, and I said, yeah, I would do that.
So let's talk a little bit about Pulchra Morte then. What's the lineup, and tell us a little bit about the band, a little bit about the history of the band.
Okay, well, the lineup is Clayton Gore, who plays drums and was my drummer in Eulogy and's been my friend for about 30 years. And then the young man named Jeffrey Breeden, who plays guitar, and he came from another band called Leagues Below. And then there is the vocalist Jason Barron, who had been in Harkonnen and a band called Bastard. And those 3 guys started this thing. They contacted me. Clay did, and he said, hey, do you have a bass? Can you lay some bass down on this demos? And I said, yeah, sure. And I listened to it, and I started learning it just to put some bass on his demos, and it was really good. Like, I really, really, really liked it. Like, I really connected with it. So I called him back, and I was like, well, why are you making a demo? That's silly. I mean, it doesn't work that way anymore. And he basically was like, well, I don't know. I was like, why don't we do a record? I said, I'll do it, but I'm going to join the band as a full-blown member and as a producer. And he said, that sounds like a great idea. So I did that. And then after I had recorded the record, while I was mixing it, I decided that there are way too many studio bands out there that are not real bands, and I can't stand that. And I decided that we needed to practice, and that in order to practice, we needed a bass player, because I wasn't going to play bass. I was going to play guitar, because that's what I always play. And so I called up my friend Dylan Kilgore, who had been in the band Withered from Atlanta, and I always thought he had really great stage presence. And I asked him if he wanted to play, and he said, yep. And then we all drove to Chicago to my girlfriend Lisa's house and set up in her basement and played. Like, the first time we walked in the room, we pretty much counted off and played the record, because everybody's pros. Everybody does their homework. There's not a lot of nonsense. Like, we just all kind of walk in and play. And so it's fun because of that. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be if it wasn't that way. It wouldn't be fun at all. Now, when we play shows or whatever, we usually just show up and we run through the set for a day before, and then we go out and play. And yeah.
And are you guys, like, scattered all over the place?
Yeah. I mean, okay, yes, but for me, distance doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I mean, some people drive a car to work. I fly a plane to work. It doesn't. I don't think like that. But yes, Dylan lives in Atlanta. I live in Orlando when I'm not traipsing the globe. Clayton and Jeff and Jason all live in what I would say is the southernmost area of Illinois, kind of near St. Louis, Missouri. That's where they all live.
And now, you released your debut album earlier this year, so tell us a little bit about writing and recording this album, Jarrett.
Well, they came to me with it basically done, mm-hmm. and I just, took on the role of producer and got the best performances out of them. I changed a few things. I rearranged a few things. The guys came down for not very long at all. They drove to Florida. They came in. I rented a drum kit for Clay so they didn't have to haul their gear down there, and tuned it. And I said, okay, here we go. Let's do it. We played it. My friend Heather showed up and sang her parts on the Soul Stench single and on the Paradise Lost cover. And I think it only took like a week. And then I went on tour for like 2 months. I went out with Serenia and with the band Tear. And then I came home and I finished doing the bass on it. And then I cut up, kind of did some rearrangement on the instrumental songs so I could add a solo on the end of it. And we were talking to a label at the time, and it didn't really pan out. We just, like, the communication really wasn't there. It wasn't so much about the deal or anything else. I guess I'll just put it to you this way. I don't really give a shit about being a rock star. Like, I'm very much like a Black Flag type of guy. Like, I just want to play music with my friends and put records out. Mm-hmm. And I just want to play music that I dig. And anybody that's going to be involved in that has got to be on the same team with us. It's not our way or the highway. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is everybody's going to be coming from the same place. Mm-hmm. And, we're not the kind of guys that are going to wait 8 months for somebody to put a long form contract in front of us. You're probably going to get about 3. And if you don't have your shit together, no hard feelings. We're just going to move on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's the thing about Pulchra, and the last thing that I want to say about it is that my favorite thing about this band is that I'm jamming with Clay again. And a lot of people really, unless you were there and in the context, you don't understand who this guy is. Like, you don't got a clue. This is the guy that Brandon Thomas from Ripping Corpse stood side stage and went, holy fucking shit, that is the fastest drummer in the universe. This is the guy I walked in to jam with the first day and, was dumbfounded. Like, the room mics of him in Morrisound in like 1992. I don't know a lot of guys that could play that now. Mm-hmm. With no triggers, no help, hands and feet. And so, like, this is like my friend, and we've always stayed friends. And so the fact that me and him are working together again, and in a producing way, kind of, it's phenomenal, because I love talented musicians. I just, people that are talented, people that have, like, that speak that same language that I speak are amazing. And he's one of those people. And I've always loved his drumming. His drumming's phenomenal. And, after a while, I think he just decided that, like, going fast and all this stuff was interesting to listen to, but that it was sort of like a marathon thing. And I think that he just wanted to play in a different way. And I don't disagree with him, because, I can write songs that are, 250, 275 BPM all day long that are cool. Mm-hmm. But I get more out of things that have weight. And from standing up on deck for the last 10 years and watching audiences, I watch them zone out when a band does a blast beat for an hour.
Right.
But I also watch their fists go up in the air when something that rocks, like a Skeleton Witch or a Goat Horror, on stage, because they can grasp what's happening in the moment. And not one thing is better than the other. But I personally enjoy things that groove a little bit. And so getting to work with Clay, that kind of is where that comes from. Yeah, it's awesome. Boy, that was long. Sorry.
No, didn't you guys recently play the Full Terror Assault Fest?
Yeah, we sure did.
And how'd that go?
It was great. Those people were really nice. We had a good time. We played on Thursday. It was a little earlier in the fest, but it was, their first time having us out. And so we really appreciated it. We had a great time. We played and we met a lot of really cool people, and the show was great. And, anytime you get to play outside with a bunch of people that are just having a good time and cutting loose without a lot of rules, it's fun,
And now, did I see that you guys are already in the writing process for a new album?
We've already recorded all the drums and bars.
And so tell us a little bit about what's going on with that. And did I also, if I was stalking properly, did I see you had some guests on this one as well?
Yeah, we did. The guys, Jeff wrote like 10 songs, like real basic frameworks. And then about a year ago, like right after we released the first one, and then so Clay starts listening to them, and I'll start listening to them. And the first thing that happens is that we start talking about tempos, and like well, I like this, I like that, where do we want this to be? And then Clay will start doing demos at home, and he'll send them to me. And then I'll take them, and I'll play on them. I'll add parts to them. I'll cut them up. I'll rearrange them. I'll move them around. I'll send them back to Clay. And all the while, this gets bounced back to Jeff. And then finally, after we've got it all together, we'll say, okay, well, this is what we want to record. This is what we want to present, And it's definitely, musically, it's a very interesting three-way writing and arranging process, because I kind of think songs are important. It's not so much about a million riffs as it's songs that go somewhere. So anyway, so the guys came down. First we played Full Terror Assault. We left Full Terror Assault. Clay went back home for like a day, and then him and I met at Earth Analog, and we spent about 4 days there, I think, doing the drums. And we recorded all the drums to tape. And it's a fantastic drum room, and it's, fun because it's just me and Clay working and getting it done. And we work, all day, every day. And I did a video online about the mic placements and what I did and what I used and why I was doing it. And we recorded all the songs. And then I went back to Florida. Well, no. Then I left the studio, and I flew to Montreal, and I mixed Triptychon, Possessed, and Aspects. And then I flew back to Chicago. Then I drove from Chicago to Florida. I drove. And the guys were there waiting for me, and we immediately went to work from there. And we recorded all the guitars. We started on the vocals, and we had our buddy Jay Fernandez from Brutality, who's Jay is a friend and is definitely an influence because, well, Jay played in Eulogy with me first of all, but Jay's such a phenomenal melodic guitar player. His understanding of how to just pick the right note. Jay can rip like nothing you've ever seen, but Jay's ability to choose the right note and just hold it and that be the note and that can be the solo and it's perfectly fine is really fantastic. And so I learned a lot real early on from Jay, in the early 90s, when, he was in Brutality and I was in Eulogy, because the two bands were always friends. And then Jay, obviously playing in my own band, I always learned a lot. So Jay's one of my favorite guitar players. I think Jay Fernandez is just a fantastic guitar player. I can't say enough about how much of a fan as well as a friend I am to him. And so we had him come up. I called him up and I was like, dude, the guys would be stoked to meet you, because they're big fans of Brutality and stuff. And, come up and play a solo. And so Jay, came up and played the lead, and it was good times. And it was real good times. And it's killer. The lead he played smokes. It's awesome.
And now we're just absorbing the new album now, but when do you guys expect to have the next one out?
Oh, it'll be a little bit. Well, I gotta go. I'm on tour for right now. I'm on the road right now with Kiefer Sutherland, yes, the actor, and I'm his monitor engineer. And that's kind of where the studio meets the live thing, because they're on in-ears. Mm-hmm. And I kind of try to make the in-ears sound like a record. And that's, some people that, I guess are operating at a higher end or whatever, they want that, and they can afford it, so they call me up. And so anyway, I'm going to be out here until the 23rd of October. I go home, and 1349 will land in Orlando the exact same time as me. Our vehicle will meet us, and then we're going to go and immediately do a month all around North America and Canada. And Pulchra is actually playing 4 of those shows. We're playing Chicago, St. Paul, Memphis, and Atlanta. And then as soon as we finish, which is November the 16th is the last one, I'm going to go home for 2 minutes. I hope I get back in the studio with Pulchra for those couple days, maybe 4 days. I think Dylan's going to come and do bass, and maybe Jason will come and do some more vocals. And then I'm going to leave immediately, and I'm going to go back out with Kiefer until right before Christmas, the 22nd. And then I don't have to do anything until I'm going to be doing some Europe stuff with 1349 at the end of January. So that whole month, I'll probably finish recording it, that whole Christmas to the end of January. I'll probably finish tracking it, and then, I don't know, I'll mix it. Mostly depends on how long I'm home. And then, I don't know, we're hoping for spring. That's what we've been talking about, is that we want to have it like release in spring.
Well, I'm exhausted just hearing all that, Jarrett.
I don't even know how to stop. Like, I don't even know what the lines look like, because I play guitar. I mean, nowadays that's blended with being in the studio. I mean, I'm also, while I'm doing all this, I'm mixing the new Perdition Temple record, which is Ronnie and Gene from Angel Corpse. And so I'm doing all the edits out here on the road. And when I get home in December, we have a few days set aside where we're just going to mix that record too. Like, I don't know how to stop. Something wrong with me.
So if people want to learn more about the band, where to pick up an album, that kind of stuff, what's the best site to go to?
Oh, well, I mean, definitely. Well, you can, like anything, you can find us on Facebook and it'll take you there. But we do everything ourselves. We operate out of a Bandcamp, and we put the record out on Ceremonial Records, which is Brutality's, label. And our Bandcamp at, pulchramorte.bandcamp.com is the best place where we keep all the merch and everything like that. Our website's just pulchramorte.com, and any of those places, and we do all the mail order and stuff ourselves, and we'll send it right to you.
And do you have an artist page as well, Jarrett?
You mean just me personally?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Jarrett Pritchard Engineer. It's my engineering page, which I try real hard to keep up with. I've been doing better this year. I have been doing better.
Well, Jarrett, thank you for coming on the show all the way from Germany to tell us a little bit about yourself and your band and your career, and all the best in making the new album, as well as everything that you got going on there, Jarrett.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.